Welcome everyone to Tales from the 90s. We've had about 18 inches of snow in this past week and a half. So this week I thought we'll go back to a time where it ain't going to be snowing. We're going back to June 1994. It's the month my baby brother Clint was born, and we'll get into more of that later. But right now, let's get to the show.
Wars and morning yawns. Play kickball in the street. Man, those days can't be beat. Tales from the 90s never die.
Yeah, the weather has not been good. Freezing cold and everything else. But we're on episode number 14 this week. Going back to June of 1994. I was 10 year old. I'm already off to a good start. I was 10 years old and I had just finished 4th grade. Whereas back then they finished school at a freaking decent time and went back to school at a better time in September, like the early September. I talked about this before. It's ridiculous that they make kids go back to school in August, especially when they've got so many classrooms have problems with air conditioning and stuff. It's just stupid. Plus, all the pools are still open up, but they all close down when school starts, so that way kids don't skip school and go to the pools. Like, well, just stop them. Anyway, we're off into the rant. This is our 4th trip into 1994. And I had an idea, like, since I randomly jump around the different years in the 90s, I had an idea that whenever I get, like, a full full year's worth of podcasts from one year, I'm going to do some kind of, just like not a year in review, but sort of that type of thing. But I'm not going to do like a clip episode where I, show clips for this one, because that's lazy in my opinion. I'll just go back through some of the highlights of that year. But anyway, we got a bonus episode coming out. I released the little teaser thing for it. It's a 90s trivia challenge between me and my wife. If I win, she's got to be Crackhead Dave and do a video with me being Crackhead Dave as well. But if she wins, she has to do my makeup. I have to do a whole one of these podcasts wearing it. Sounds real fair, right? But anyway, that video is actually done, so I already know who the winner of that is. So you'll find out. Don't exactly know when that's coming out. It may be out by the time this video is already out. It may be after, but it'll probably be within this week. I hope you guys have liked the video game one I've done too. I did 2 episodes. I did one with a few different games in it, and then I did one with me playing around a Mario Party 2. But a lot more of those will probably come in the future. I'm still trying to figure out what exactly this channel is going to be. If you're on YouTube, you already know it's either me ranting about stuff, these podcasts, or me singing. That's pretty much it. Old home videos too, but don't want to talk too much about old stuff. We're going to get into this week because I got something really exciting. If you see it in the background here, we'll talk about this in a minute. But Tales from the Crypt, of course, my all-time favorite, had wrapped season 5, so they were out of season, and then they'd also wrapped season 1 of Tales from the Crypt Keeper, which was the cartoon, of course. At this time, they were showing reruns of Tales from the Crypt on Fox. Late night. It was this time it was 11 to midnight. Later it'd be in syndication more, and it'd be like midnight to 1. But of course these were heavily edited for TV. Of course the violence and the nudity was taken out, and the language. But they'd have to edit some of the episodes. And not having cable, some of the ones that Tales from the Crypts that I'd seen, like most of them had been those edited versions, so I would later watch them and be like, I don't remember this scene at all. They'd be like, because you have to edit it for TV as to fit in the time, not just the content. So you take a episode, and they varied in length usually. It wasn't exact length in Tales from the Crypt, but they got to fit in 22 minutes into TV. So there'd be like whole scenes missing that I would see later on the DVD and I'd be like, wow, I don't remember this. Like this, and it wasn't like some of the stuff they did cut out was like important to the story, but some of it wasn't. You know how editing for TV goes. Well, they don't really do that these days. You can do what you want on TV these days. Back then, you couldn't do much. But yeah, everybody knows my love from Tales from the Crypt. My first experience with it was, I watched it with my dad. I watched it with my mom, but I remember like all I knew it was the TV show. But my dad got me some comic books. They were selling them at Ameristop, which is he called convenient because it was the convenience store. I don't know if that was actually the name of it. He always called it convenient. I remember walking with him there all the time. But they sold in the 90s they were reprinting the comics because they went away in the 50s because it's contributing to juvenile delinquency, whatever. But they started reprinting them in the 90s. Of course, once the TV show came out, it brought the popularity back. And I remember having some of those, and I've got a few of them now that my wife got me. And I probably will never be able to own an original one from the 50s. That would be super cool if I could. But what I got here, I got off Amazon. Only $14 for this. And it said it was a paperback version. The hardback versions are $105. This came out a few years ago. Not much, like 4 or 5. But I don't know if you can tell by you can put it up next to my big head. I've seen a few Tales from the Crypt paperback books. You're expecting them small ones that are, everything condensed. This thing is humongous. It's bigger than the original comic books. I don't know if you can see like some of the art in this. But this is volume 1 of the Tales from the Crypt EC Archives. And if you didn't know, Tales from the Crypt was part of EC Comics, which was originally educational comics, but then once Bill Gaines took over from his father Max, who started the company, it became entertaining comics. And the horror line of Tales from the Crypt was like their flagship, but they had other ones. They had the Vault of Horror, which was hosted by him, the Vault Keeper. They had the Haunt of Fear, hosted by the Old Witch. They had crime suspense stories, shock suspense stories, Two-Fisted Tales, a bunch of different lines that, if you've seen all the Tales from the Crypt episodes, they tell at the beginning which one it was in. A lot of them actually didn't come from this. The Tales from the Crypt line. I don't know how that got to be their main one over, the other ones. It just sort of did. But like I said, a lot of them came from the other comic books. But they're all written by the same people. They're all, the same artists. It's just really a matter of name. And it used to be, if you see the back, used to be the Crypt of Terror. I don't know why they changed it to Tales from the Crypt. Maybe because they're trying to get terror out of the name because it scared people and the censors are already coming. But this is really cool. This is volume 1, like I said, of the EC Archives. So hopefully they put all the EC Archives out because I'd like to get this whole collection. Because this really is beautiful. Like, if I can get one of my comics out, let's see if I can. I'm gonna make a mess on my shelf. Stuff's probably gonna fall. Anyway, this is an original one, and actually, it's got this. Here's a full size. This is the full size, and then this is this. So you can see, like, these are bigger, and the color quality on these. At least if I find another. Like full, the color qualities, I don't know if it's come across in the camera. Sorry, I'm making this into a long review of a book. This ain't book club. And I'm knocking everything down. I knew it. It was a matter of time. But I still don't know what I'm doing with my sign here. I'm just writing some stuff on it. But, yeah, the quality of this is amazing. I haven't actually started to read it yet. Because there's a lot of the comics I haven't read. But, I just wanted to go through a few things. By the way, if you know as the TV show Crypt Keeper. This is the original Crypt Keeper. Definitely looked like just a regular human with like a wart on his nose. He could have been a brother to the old witch, even though they hated each other. But yeah, this is, man, when I had these as a kid, that was so freaking awesome. Of course, I had no idea about the history of them going back to the 50s and all that other stuff. I thought, no, it goes with the TV show. I got my other book. It's back there. It's the complete EC archives. It's a history from basically the history of comic books up until when the book was printed. They'd wrapped the season 7, and we're talking about another season. But of course, they got canceled. I'm not going to go through every story here, but I wanted to look at the ones that were actually made into episodes. Just scanning. I haven't looked at this before. By the way, there's a foreword in this written by John Carpenter. Of course, horror legend, created Halloween. Did Stephen King's Christine. But the first one I notice here comes from the Crypt of Terror number 17. This is from April to May 1950. That shows you how long ago these were. That was, geez, how old is that? 75 years ago. This comic came out. But The Man Who Was Death, which went on to be the first episode, which is with William Sadler, where he pulls the switch at the electric chair, and they decide, the electric chair is too harsh of a penalty, so we're getting rid of it. And they, that's been his job for years, and they wouldn't let him work at the prison as like a guard because everybody knows what he did, they said. So he was out of a job. So he was seeing people like get off crimes when they're clearly guilty. So he decided to become a vigilante, electrocuting them. And he gets busted just in time to see they reinstated the death penalty. And he makes a big deal about everybody crying, but if he had to do it, he wouldn't show emotion while he was screaming and crying for the governor. The governor's gonna call by the end. Yeah, I was gonna be so much fun to go back and read these. Sorry, you're like, what are you so excited about this over? Like, I hope I can get like the whole collection of the EC comics. Like, that would be like mind blowing to me. Let's see here. Mute Witness to Murder. That was in the Crypt of Terror number 18. This was an episode where this couple is celebrating their anniversary, and they can see across the way to this apartment across the street, and the woman's like standing out there, and she witnesses, the neighbor across the street murdering his wife, and like, for some reason it scares her so much she can't even talk. And he's a doctor, and who would you think the husband calls when he's trying to find out what's going on with his wife? He ends up calling the guy over there, and he's a doctor at like a psych ward, so he puts her in there, and he has heart trouble, and I won't spoil too much of that one, but that one's a good one. Let's see. Zombie in the Crypt of Terror 19. Now, this wasn't an episode on the TV show, but they came out with a radio play drama type thing. It came out on CD. I think they released it online first, but anyway, it's like the old radio drama of like the early days of radio when, before music was everywhere. They had, the radio dramas. It was before TV. And Zombie was one of them that was in this collection. I have it on my computer. It always pops up from time to time. That one's a fun one to listen to. A Fatal Caper. Tales from the Crypt number 20. This was the first episode of the last season, the famed season where they're in England. It's about a father and trying to figure out he's got a son that's missing, that ran away, and 2 ungrateful sons, and he wants to change his will, and it's a crazy episode. The ending at the end is like unexpected. And let's see, any more? Tales from the Crypt number 22, The Thing from the Grave. This is, as Crypt Keeper describes in the episode, it's a love story. It's about this girl with an abusive guy. She's a model, and her like agents, her boyfriend is like abusive and controlling. And she falls in love with this photographer who promises to take care of her no matter what. Well, when he's in the grave, he still comes back to take care of her. And that's it for those. Yeah, just if you ever have a chance to like find any of these or read any online or anything, they were so far ahead of their time 75 years ago. But anyway, that's my my dog's bark. That's my 9-hour review of Tales from the Crypt, the EC Archives, Volume 1. Join us next week for the actual podcast. No, I'm kidding. Let's go into TV. Of course, I've talked about it before. This is June, so the TV shows are all in reruns for one, it makes it hard to find records of what was on then, and two, like I said, it was in mostly reruns and just summer stuff that they would show that they've shown forever. But one show that was on during this time was on Sunday nights on Fox, and I never watched it. I've watched a couple episodes since then. I want to watch the whole thing. It's the George Carlin Show. He plays a taxi cab driver, not playing himself as a comedian, but George Carlin, like, hands down. Rodney Carrington's like super close at second, but George Carlin's my all-time favorite comedian. I got introduced to him by my grandpa and dad, like early 2000s. They were watching his HBO specials, and just the stuff he said is so freaking hilarious. I have his complete every album on my computer, and it'll randomly play, and the stuff will still be funny, and I've like memorized it all. But George Carlin was way ahead of his time. They tried to cancel him before canceling became a thing, and there's some stuff I don't agree with him on, like the biggest thing is religion. You know, he was super anti-religion and all this other stuff. And I can tolerate it because I tolerate it in daily life, everybody running down religion and everything. I realize that those people, there's no sense arguing, because if you believe something so strongly, the most you can do is try to help people see different. But you can't really argue with them, because then you just get into a shouting match, and it just makes them believe in what they believe even more. So, that's kind of where I am with that. But yeah, George Carlin, absolutely hilarious. Of course, the legendary 7 things you can't say on TV, which I just talked about, things you can't say on TV. Like fart was a word you couldn't say on TV originally. You can say the F word now on anything but like local TV, and it passes the FCC. But like I'd said, the TV schedule was hard to figure out. But one thing I haven't talked about really that much on here is the PBS shows. For us 90s kids, those PBS shows were like a hidden gem. And I just want to talk about some of the ones that were on now. There's some missing, like Ghost Rider, which wasn't on at this time, which I'll talk about another time. But of course, Sesame Street. I didn't watch a whole lot of it. It was on sometimes, so of course I knew all the characters. And one of my favorite little golden books as a kid, if you remember those, was one with Grover in it. Grover was my favorite Sesame Street character. He wasn't on there near enough. But of course, this was the time that Barney and Friends was absolutely huge. I have like a love-hate relationship with Barney. Like back then, I hate Barney. I told the story about, I swear if you fall over, you stupid sign, the story about my principal dressing up as Barney and me and some other kids throwing rocks at him and getting in trouble. But now that I look back at it, it's like, I love Barney. Like, I'll do that to like annoy people. Put on the Barney song or something. But looking back on it and some of the stuff they've had since then, Barney was definitely not as annoying as he seemed at the time compared to the stuff they have today and the stuff they've had through the 2000s. Like, if you don't know what Barney is, it's this toy dinosaur that comes to life and it's like a giant person in a costume. It's supposed to be basically the kid's imagination. That was the whole point of the show, is using your imagination. But then we had Shining Time Station. Speaking of George Carlin, he was Mr. Conductor on there. The filthy stuff he said on TV, and he was a train conductor on a kids PBS show. That would never fly today. But Reading Rainbow, my God, that show was so important. Not only was it on and you'd watch it at home, but they'd show this during school too, and they would have like the books from it. It was just such an important show. LeVar Burton was the host. He was on, of course, Star Trek Next Generation. But yeah, they would have books on there, and then they would go to these places and talk to people. I can't, other than it's such an important show, I can't really get across how, the theme song is, of course, iconic. Lamb Chops Play Along. Oh, I can't think of the woman's name. That's going to drive me nuts. I'm going to have to look that up. You're probably at home like, it's so-and-so. Why can't I think of her name? Yes, I'm looking it up. And of course, as soon as I see the name, I'm like, of course. Sherry Lewis, of course. Sherry Lewis, Lamb Chop's Play Along. Lamb Chop was the puppet. Of course, the famous freaking song on there. This is the song that never ends. You'd have kids at school just constantly going on and on. I remember kids getting sent to the principal office because they literally would not end the song. But, Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. Of course, that's not just a 90s show. Everybody knows Mr. Rogers. That was basically, it was a show just, teaching you about life. Mr. Rogers is so soothing to listen to, sort of like Bob Ross, which was, I'm sure, another PBS show at the time. I was looking at the kids stuff. I'll talk about Bob Ross more on another episode. But you're just one of those soothing hosts that just a part of our childhood. And of course, Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego? I've talked about before, that game show. That was so much fun. The thing about PBS is you were entertained and you were taught, but it wasn't done in a way to where I'm at school, they're just trying to make this fun, but it's schoolwork. You'd sometimes learn more from PBS than you would from school just because of the way it was presented. But like I'd said about TV, it was on reruns and stuff, so I'm not going to be covering TGIF this week. I will be going to the Saturday morning cartoons, though. This week I've chosen June 25th of 1994. Let's see what we have here. Again, a lot of this will be, I've never heard of this. CBS, we're already starting. Marsupilami. Guessing it's about marsupials. Or salami, I don't know. I don't want to see the salami and marsupials. But Disney's The Little Mermaid. I've talked about this one before. The last one I did was the year before this, so some of this will be the same. I've never watched the Little Mermaid series. And Garfield and Friends. Such a great cartoon. Old lazy freaking Garfield and his lasagna. And then Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, that classic cartoon that started in the 80s that started the... Again, I've said it before, it didn't start the Turtles, that was the comic books, but it started the Turtles becoming popular. It was still going strong here in 94. Dennis the Menace, I love that cartoon. I remember watching it on Nickelodeon. And of course, I've seen the shows from the 50s. Just the trouble. And of course, the movie from the mid-90s, that movie's hilarious. Conan and the Young Warriors, never heard of that one. A Busch Gardens / SeaWorld Summer Celebration. Not sure what that is. Probably just a long infomercial for those theme parks that they make for kids. Move on to Fox. Dog City, never heard of it. Then 8:30 in the morning, we've got Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. Of course. Power Ranger mania had took off at this point. The last time I talked in 93, they had just started. But within a year, they were everywhere. And I remember watching it. I've talked about it before. But I remember seeing the commercials for it before and sitting down and watching the first episode and just being instantly hooked. Bobby's World, of course. It's got one of those theme songs that just gets stuck in your head. It's like a circus carnival type music. Eek and the Terrible Thunder Lizards, okay? I've talked before, I never really watched Eek the Cat. I've never heard of Eek and the Terrible Thunder Lizards. Frog in my throat. They're tiny, they're toony. Tiny Toon Adventures. Such a classic. Of course, this is obviously before the WB got their own network and moved their stuff on there because, of course, Tiny Toons were WB. They lived in the Warner Brothers Tower. It's the Warner Brothers and the Warner sister, as this thing goes. I don't know exactly what they were. Like, they were animals or what. They're just cartoons. Then Tasmania on at 10:30. One of my favorite Looney Tune character type shows. Then the X-Men at 11 o'clock. Don't care for the superhero movies, but I love the X-Men cartoon series. And Where on Earth is Carmen Sandiego? That was a cartoon they came out with. I didn't watch a lot of that because when it started, of course, I was expecting the game show. But it was more a cartoon series and an adventure series, not, it wasn't teaching you about things. I mean, I guess it did a little bit, but it was more about, entertaining. Then NBC, of course, I've talked about before, not a lot of memories of the stuff on there because it was more geared toward tweens. maybe tweens, mostly teens though. I was 10 years old at this time, so I was still, not into all the teen dramas of that time. But Name Your Adventure, California Dreams, never seen them. Saved by the Bell, The New Class, I only seen that briefly. That's when they tried to bring because they done Saved by the Bell the college years, and that wasn't really getting the ratings. So they tried to get a new class in Saved by the Bell, and it really didn't go anywhere. Running the Halls, never heard of it. And then NBA Inside Stuff was their basketball show on at noon. Wasn't into basketball, so I wasn't watching that. Yeah, I was definitely flipping back and forth, though, between CBS and Fox. I'm not sure if ABC had any cartoons on at this time, or they don't have them listed. They may not have had any cartoons on at this time. I'm going to go to the next. Oh, they did. They just didn't have them. They didn't have them listed. Because, next week I'm seeing Tales from the Crypt Keeper, Addams Family, Sonic the Hedgehog, Land of the Lost. So, yeah, they just didn't have the ABC schedule for that week. People are going back and putting this together. Sometimes it's hard to get an accurate record of this stuff. But yeah, that's just some of the Saturday morning cartoons. We'll move into sports. Of course, being June, baseball in full swing. But this is 1994. This is the strike-shortened season, so there would be no World Series champion that year. But the best teams that were at this time were the Yankees and Indians and the Braves and the Expos. The Expos had the best record at the end of the season, by the way. But the Reds were leading in their division, too. We were leading the Central by 2.5 games. So, we could have easily made the playoffs, and who knows what could have happened. 95, we made the playoffs, but we didn't get far. But, who knows? 94 could have been our year, but we'll never know because of greedy owners and greedy players. But in NASCAR, something that hasn't happened here on the channel yet when I've reviewed the NASCAR seasons, all 3 races in this month were won by Rusty Wallace. And would you believe it? He only finished 3rd in the championship. Dale Earnhardt won his 3rd title that year. But yeah, Rusty Wallace won all 3 races, but ended up not winning the championship. Yeah, he won the Budweiser 500 at Dover, the UAW GM Teamwork 500. Say that 5 times fast at Pocono. And then he won his own sponsors race, Miller Genuine Draft 400 at Michigan. International Speedway, sorry. Like I said, he ended up finishing 3rd. Next, I want to talk about some of my favorite places. Transition from NASCAR to that. But favorite places to eat as a kid. And by the way, I know you're probably watching because you're a stalker, so hi, Snake Boy. Smell some fish. Nobody will get that. One will. But anyway. Of course, I talked before, in Price Hill, my favorite place as a kid would be eating at Pete's. It was a couple, not a couple houses, but, just a few feet from where we lived on Warsaw Avenue above the flower shop. They had the grilled cheese with pickles with roads on it, as I called it. Yeah, just one of those diners, those old greasy diners that you see in TV shows. They're not just cliches in movies and TV shows. These places existed. Some of them still exist. And some of them have the best food you've ever had. I love fast food, obviously. I love, national chain restaurants. But some of those local things that, like in Vivi, Roxano's, the greatest breadsticks, the greatest ranch. This is not as a kid. I'll be talking about them in my late 90s episode later, whenever it happens. But just some of those local places, you can't really, get that food anywhere else. And some of them were like that. And one restaurant that's like that, although there are some in Florida and some spread out, through Kentucky and stuff. I believe a couple in Indiana. But Skyline Chili. Man, anybody that knows me, I go on and on and on about freaking Skyline Chili. I literally bought 30 cans once because they were ringing up for $2, and I thought the store was messed up. Really, they were just phasing out the smaller cans. But I bought literally 30 cans of Skyline, and actually I wanted to buy more, but I didn't. Now I got $60 worth of Skyline, although really it was almost $150 worth. Anyway, if you don't know what Skyline is, it's a Cincinnati thing. It's not the only one. It's my favorite personally, but there's Gold Star chili, which they also sell in stores. Empress chili. I believe there's one Empress chili, I think, down in Alexandria, Kentucky, I think. I want to go there. I remember there being almost as good as Skyline. I believe their chili had like chili peppers in it, like, because I remember Mom always got the frozen ones, the frozen tubs, and I always remember like the chili peppers in it. It was a spicier chili, but it wasn't like that bad. But, and of course around Cincinnati, Camp Washington chili. I've never actually gone to those places. I would love to someday. But for me, my all-time favorite is Skyline. Can't go wrong with, of course, you get a Skyline, you either get a cheese coney, which is, to people who don't know what that is, it's a hot dog with chili and cheese on it. And this chili is different. It's a thin chili. People make fun of it and call it a soup, and it's not soup, boy. Anyway, but it's an experience. If you're ever like around Cincinnati, get some. They serve it at the Bengals and Reds games. If you're ever at one of those, just, you gotta try it. It's a different flavor. It's got, like, I don't know the exact secret ingredients, but I'm almost positive it has chocolate and cinnamon in it. Which I know sounds weird, but it's not like you taste it and it tastes like a Hershey bar. I mean, it's good, trust me. Snuggles, you want some Skyline? My doggy wants some Skyline. I don't give it to them because it's greasy and it would kill them. But, yeah, just, I love Skyline. And Price Hill was actually where the first Skyline ever was. And they were tearing it down to build another one. And my dad just happened to be walking by, and they actually interviewed him. Like, he's in the newspaper. I've got clips saved on my computer of him talking about Skyline. This, like, so it's so close to me. And, you know, people make fun of it, and it don't personally affect me. But, you know, I absolutely love Skyline. Of course, I was talking about the ways to get it. You get it that way, or you get it with spaghetti, and that's another controversy. Do you put noodles in your chili? And some people are like, "Oh my God, you put noodles in your chili." So what? It's good. You don't have to have it. You can just have a bowl of chili. I don't know why people, and the thing with the pineapple on pizza, people just get so bent out of shape over stuff. Like, you know, unless you're eating something you shouldn't be eating, let people eat what the freak they want. But of course, the most famous pizza place around Cincinnati is La Rosa's Pizza. I like it, but I like Angelo's Pizza better. One, they have, I don't know if they have Skyline or their own version of it, but they have that over fries with cheese. So for some chili cheese fries, that stuff is good, but their pizza is good. It's extra greasy, I'll warn you now, but it is just so good. I haven't had Angelo's Pizza, God, 30 years at least. I miss that stuff. I guarantee I taste it now and I would remember exactly the taste, though. Of course, Frisch's has been in the news. Frisch's Big Boy. They've been in the news for whoever bought them has not been paying the rent, and all these locations are closing. It's really sad. I hope they get saved. Some of the places are getting saved, but I really hope that place gets saved because I have so many memories of Frisch's. Although I have a lot of bad memories. I've gotten chili from there so many times, and they've always had freaking hairs in it. Like, I remember and I always liked their chili. I was like, maybe this time, but be pulling out gray hairs, and multiple locations. But one time I remember going, oh God, this is embarrassing. I don't know if Joshua will remember this. I know my mom probably will. We were eating, and I got like, probably country fried steak was probably my go-to there. And I would like pick it up and dip it in the mashed potatoes. Anyway, I had stuff all over my hands and was drinking instead of wiping my hands off. So the waitress went to get my cup to give me a refill. She looked at the cup, she barely picked it up, set it back down, and got me a new cup. And my mom was like so embarrassed. Everybody's laughing at me. I miss Hardee's, the old Hardee's. The Hardee's they have now is not the same Hardee's as I had as a kid. And I'm not saying, oh, the times have changed. No, they closed down and got bought out by the company that owns Carl's Jr. in California. That's why Carl's Jr. and Hardee's are interchangeable depending on whether you're in the West or the East. But the Hardee's they have now is absolutely nasty. I do not like it. The old Hardee's was so good. They had fried chicken, some of the best sausage biscuits you could have in the morning. That that was such a great place to eat that I wish was still the actual ones around. And one other place I want to talk about, because I get the thanks to Andy Shays, I get I don't know what to call it, but the reputation, I guess, of being KFC. I'm obsessed with KFC, and I am. I'm not gonna say that's a lie. I am obsessed with KFC. But my all-time favorite chicken is not Popeyes. Popeyes is good, okay? Popeyes is good. KFC is the almost top, but my favorite of all time is Lee's Famous Recipe. I remember it was started in Lima, or Lima, depending who you're talking to. I call it Lima, Ohio. But, because I remember reading the box all the time. Like, they had the story on the box. But this was, they have one in New Albany if you're around my area. They have one there. It's expensive. But the chicken is almost identical to KFC. Like, if I had 2 pieces, like, I'd love one day to have 2 pieces and just try them and see what the differences are. But the mashed potatoes, the gravy, and the coleslaw are all almost identical. But there's just something, like, just a little bit better about Lee's Famous Recipe chicken. I remember Marky Foe would literally get a giant metal tray of 50 hot wings from there, and he'd eat them all in one freaking night. I still don't like hot wings. He never offered them to us anyway. He got us some chicken from Lee's sometimes, but if he did, it was a good day. Yeah, I remember that being in Norwood, like right next to this tire place. And I only remember that because he had to have his tires done. It was like 4 hours sitting there waiting. And you could smell Lee's the whole time. My stomach was rumbling. Can we get Lee's? No, we ain't eating no Lee's. You don't get home and I'm going to make you some slop or some lurch dogs, or I'm just going to throw mushrooms at your face because that's all I care about, freaking mushrooms. Anyway. Yeah. Oh, I love that. I'm getting hungry now. Going out to eat with my kids today. Their birthday's Sunday, so we're taking them to 88 King. Not my favorite place. I'll probably end up with food poisoning, but there's a couple things I like there. By the way, if you like those Asian type buffets, do not go to the Golden Blossom in, I don't know if it's Jeffersonville or Charlestown or whatever. I always get those two confused because they're close together. Don't go to the Golden Blossom. Even my wife, who loves Asian food, it was disgusting and cold and nasty and old. Almost as bad as Bubba Luke's Soup Boy, but not quite. Sorry if this podcast is going on forever. I'm talkative today. But actually got a lot to talk about in music. The Billboard Hot 100. Huge song going on at this time was All For One's I Swear. It was number 1 this whole month, the whole following month, and it actually was number 1 for 2 weeks back in May. So yeah, 10-week run at number 1. And of course, I knew that song first from John Michael Montgomery. He recorded it first, I Swear. That was just it was huge for him too. That's just one of those songs that when All For One did it, you could definitely see it was a crossover hit. And I think John Michael Montgomery's could have been a crossover hit too if All For One hadn't recorded it. But I mean, good for them because 10 weeks at number 1, that was massive. The American Country Countdown, number 1 to start the week or to start the month was Tim McGraw, his classic "Don't Take the Girl." I sung this at karaoke at it was like a church carnival, St. Lawrence Carnival in Price Hill. I won a B105 fluorescent yellow with pink letters on it t-shirt. It was like 10 sizes too big for me, but I was proud of that because I sung karaoke because they were dancing for it and I wasn't gonna dance. But then they was like, we got one more left. How about someone sing? And I jumped at the opportunity. But anyway, that song was massive, and if Tim McGraw hadn't done the annoying songs he's been doing recently and making himself look like he's just so cheesy trying to fit in with these times, this would probably be known as his signature song. I still think it is. It was also number 1 the week before this, so it had 2 weeks. Next week, this is really in my wheelhouse here. Brooks and Dunn, That Ain't No Way to Go. I've sung this song many times at karaoke. That Ain't No Way to Go. I love that song so much. And then number 1 for 2 weeks to round out the month, and then 2 weeks in the next month. So 4 weeks. I was surprised that this song, I mean, I knew it was big, but I didn't know it was this big. It was Neil McCoy's Wink. I knew it was, like I said, I knew it was big, but I didn't realize it was 4-week number 1. You gotta realize in country, it was hard to get multiple weeks because there's so much competition. But the thing I remember about Neil McCoy was Josh couldn't pronounce it, so he always called him Neil McCoy. It's Neil McCoy. You probably don't even remember that. Dang frog in my throat. I got my Big Red this week. Speaking of pops, popular around Cincinnati. By the way, yes, I call it pop. Some people call it soda, some call it a drink, some call it a Coke. Where I was from, we always called it pop. But there was 3 albums that were released in June of '94 that were really big albums. Starting with Alan Jackson's Who I Am. Massive hits on this. The singles Summertime Blues, which was a cover of an old song from the 60s, I believe. Living on Love, that was massive. Gone Country, where he makes fun of the people that are doing country because their careers failed or because it's the popular thing to do. They're still doing it, even worse though these days, because they think they're going country, but they're just going rap and calling it country. Anyway, I Don't Even Know Your Name. That was a funny song. It had Jeff Foxworthy in the video. Song for the Life, written by legendary Rodney Crowell. It wasn't a number 1, it was a number 4, but it was a really good song. My favorite song on the album, though, it wasn't a single. It's called Hole in the Wall. If you get a chance to listen to it, that's a really good, classic country song. Then the next album was huge also. It was Tracy Byrd, No Ordinary Man. It was the second album and probably his biggest. I'm actually going to see Tracy Byrd in, what is it, June or July or August? I can't remember. I think it's the start of July or the very end of June, one of the two. Anyway, it's Rock the Rind. It's the Watermelon Festival in Jackson County. But of course, that's the Watermelon Festival, and one of his most famous songs was the Watermelon Crawl. And we were always saying, like I was saying to my wife, like, they should get Tracy Byrd because the Watermelon Crawl. Well, they're gonna do it. By the way, at that Rock the Rind, they give out free watermelons, which is freaking awesome. But anyway, some of his other singles from that: The First Step, Lifestyles of the Not So Rich and Famous. That was a funny song. And Keeper of the Star is one of his, like, I don't know if it's my favorite song of his, but it's very close. One of those ones that could have been a crossover, massive love song. And then the third album was Vince Gill, When Love Finds You, which I actually just got on tape not too while ago. Yeah, I got a tape player in the van, so I get tapes from Goodwill. But the singles, Whenever You Come Around, oh, that's a classic song. Vince Gill can freaking sing and he can freaking play. He was Brad Paisley and Keith Urban before them. And Keith Urban, another Tim McGraw, getting away from what everybody loved to do, what's popular. Anyway, a couple other songs from the Vince Gill album. Sorry, I'm not trying to disrespect Vince by talking about Idiots Today. By the way, Vince Gill is with the freaking, performing with the Eagles now as one of the Eagles. How crazy is that? Still mad at them for getting my videos taken down and give me a copyright strike. You don't need the money. I wasn't getting any money. Anyway, back to Vince Gill, maybe. You Better Think Twice, What the Cowgirls Do. The title track, of course, When Love Finds You. And Which Bridge to Cross, Which Bridge to Burn. Oh, that is so, like, one of those heartbreaking classic country songs that I'd turn it on full blast and sing whenever I can. And probably one of his most important songs ever, Go Rest High on That Mountain. He wrote it for his brother, but also for Keith Whitley as well, I think, because they performed it at his... I don't know if they performed it... No, they didn't perform it at his funeral. He wrote it for him. He mostly wrote... Sorry, let me start all that again. He mostly wrote that for his brother. But he ended up it being a Keith Whitley tribute. But I've sung the song before as a tribute for my dad. It's just, you know, it's a heavy, heavy song. If you lost anybody, just be warned, if you're going to listen to that song for the first time, it's going to hit you. But Some more music-related stuff. This was the time they had the 1994 TNN Music City News Awards. Of course, TNN was the national. It became the national network. It was the Nashville network. It was the forerunner to CMT. You know, they showed videos and country concerts, but they had awards, and this was basically the year of Alan Jackson. He just come off the A Lot About Living, A Little About Love album, which actually won Album of the Year, but he also won Entertainer of the Year. And you think Entertainer of the Year in the 90s, you think Garth Brooks, but in 94, at least on this awards, Alan Jackson was the man. Said Entertainer of the Year, Album of the Year, Male Artist of the Year. Usually the Male Artist of the Year and Entertainer of the Year, they try to pick somebody different. I don't know if it's just to get more people recognized or what they go by, what the difference is, but you know, he won that too. Female Artist of the Year, Lori Morgan. Love her. Speaking of Keith Whitley, his wife. Vocal Group of the Year. They have a Vocal Group of the Year, and then they have Vocal Band of the Year. I don't know. Maybe they're saying one sings better and one's a better complete band. But anyway, the Vocal Group of the Year was the Statlers, which weren't really doing much by then. I think they phase this award out soon. Vocal Duo of the Year, Brooks and Dunn. Of course. Mid-90s, of course. The Vocal Band of the Year was Sawyer Brown. They were really coming on at this time. They'd started in the 80s. Mark Miller, the singer, he's so goofy, but he's so good. Video of the Year was Alan Jackson's Chattahoochee. That video is so funny. He's out on the river. It's such a great video. You gotta watch that. You gotta find that on YouTube. Vocal Collaboration of the Year, Reba McEntire and Linda Davis, Does He Love You? I've talked about, in fact, in my last one from last year, I talked about that. It only being #1 for 1 week, but I mean, the video, and I could have swore that song was longer at #1 than only 1 week, because that song was huge. But Single of the Year, Chattahoochee. Star of Tomorrow, John Michael Montgomery. And boy, were they right. By this time, he was already a huge star. Like, they probably put these awards together a few months before, but he was a star of today by then. Gospel Act of the Year, Paul Overstreet. Love some of it. I've never heard of his gospel stuff, but I've loved his country stuff, and of course, known even more as a great writer. Comedian of the Year, Ray Stevens. Classic, love Ray Stevens. The Streak, Mississippi Squirrel. Instrumentalist of the Year, I just talked about him, Vince Gill, of course. Living Legend Award went to Dolly Parton. Which, fun fact, by the way, I don't know exactly how, but it was confirmed to me that Dolly Parton is a distant relative to my grandma Lois, my dad's mom. Like, I don't know exactly how and how far removed and all this other stuff, or if it was by marriage or anything, but a distant relative. No, I'm not in her will or anything. I'm just saying, distant relative. And then one other music note. Aerosmith became the first major band to let fans download a full new track for free from the internet, which in '94 was like unheard of. Not just that a major band would do it, but just like you could download music. And of course, everybody says what they want about, you know, the downloading and all this other stuff, and the stuff with Napster that would come later. But you know, I think, you know, you should go out and support the artists, but some of this stuff isn't out anymore. You can't, and there's a whole thing of, you know, streaming and downloading and physical content. I love to have the physical content. I buy CDs still and keep them, but I also love having them on my computer. You know, streaming I put on in the background sometimes. It's good, but I could live without streaming. I couldn't live without my music on my computer or my CDs, you know. Just like with DVDs, I'd prefer to own them over just streaming them, because who knows when it'll be taken off streaming. Even if you buy something on there, there's no guarantee that they keep the rights to keep showing it. You can buy something, just like with video games. You buy a video game and they stop supporting it, like the Friday the 13th game I bought. They stopped online support, so it's like you can't play online with people anymore. So this game you paid for, you can do some offline stuff, but that's about it. It's like you pay for something, you get it, and it's like they take the game back later and you don't get the money back. Anyway, like I said, know if you can read up here how far this goes up, but happy birthday, Clinton. Clinton was born in June 1984, June 21st to be exact. And yeah, so he don't have a lot of the Marky Fo memories because we'd left, a few years after this. He was still little. But so the earliest stuff I remember is Marky Fo freaking he couldn't change a diaper without a bucket to puke in because the smell of poop made him throw up, even though he smelled like poop. Anyway, he's like, when I change a diaper, I need two things: a beer and a bucket. Literally, he'd be drinking the beer and then a bucket to throw up in when he's changing the diaper. But one of the things I remember, and I feel bad about, was me and Josh. I don't think Travis was old enough, or maybe he was. I can't remember. But there, for some reason, I had, for Halloween one year, this robber mask. It was just a generic rubber mask. It looked like one of those old robbers. Like, it was a full face, but then it had the black thing over the eyes, like a mask, and the face looked old, and had like one of those taxi cab driver hats on. But we used to put this on, and Clint was like maybe 2, and it would scare the crap out of him. And we'd put it on, turn around and go in his face, and he would scream. Like, I feel bad now. Like, I wouldn't recommend doing this to a baby now, but I certainly wouldn't to my grandson. But we would scare the crap out of him, and we would get in so much trouble for it, but we kept doing it. They literally took the mask and like put it in this like drawer we weren't supposed to get into. But some of the stuff Clinton did later on, like he would go outside in the snow with no shoes on, and then come in and his feet would be frostbitten and screaming. And then one time, oh my God, he was making hot dogs, boiling them on the stove, knocked the pan over onto his feet, and you can imagine the pain. And I know it was painful, but I still call this being over dramatic. He was running through the house, screaming back and forth. He got on the top bunk of our beds and was kicking his feet at the ceiling, hitting the ceiling. And every time he did it, it would make his feet hurt worse. And he kept doing it and screaming. Then he tried to put him in cold water, and oh God, it was a disaster. I don't know, Clint, do you have scars on your feet from any of this? But one of the things we did later on in Norwood, I was like early 20s, and his neighbors, DJ and Paris, their dad was a preacher. He had this public access show called Keeping It Real, but he wanted to record us for some like opening segment, which I never ended up seeing. This show was like barely on public access, but I never seen this episode. He like recorded me suplexing Clint, but it was the world's worst suplex. I had the most homeless wrestling outfit for when I would do the backyard wrestling with my brothers. You know, stuff you do as kids, not you should be doing it in rings, 5-star, XCW, freaking Supreme Pro Wrestling. It's up in Logansport, not Supreme Wrestling here. It's some rip-off idiots that hire literal spousal abusers that are backyard wrestlers. Anyway, I had back to this. I had these maroon sweatpants, and one of the biggest freaking problems is my pants are always falling down in the back. I got called butt crack so many times, and I didn't want to keep pulling up my pants when I was wrestling, so I took these maroon sweatpants and this green long sleeve shirt I had, took shoelaces and basically like at different parts in the back and the sides, like tied these together, like almost like some homeless version of sewing, and just so the front part came up so I could put the pants on and then put the shirt over my head. That was my wrestling outfit. And we would be out there wrestling in the yard. I did this horrible attempt at a suplex. If this thing, I doubt DJ and Paris are watching, or I doubt you have like videos that your dad did. But if somehow this ever gets anywhere, I'd love to see how horrible this footage is. I don't know if you ever even used it. It was so horrible. I don't even know why he recorded it for his for his church show. But anyway, of course, that same time period, we wanted him to play freaking football with us, but he wouldn't ever play. We'd like make him play if we didn't have enough to make it even teams. But one of the things he was infamous for is going around to the different people's houses where either our friends lived or just neighbors that we knew. And he was like, I'm hungry. His favorite line was, I'm hungry. Can I eat with you guys? And people be giving him food. He'd be stopping like it's freaking Halloween every day for him. But we had this one neighbor, one of my friends, Brandon, his grandma was named Rita. And he'd go to Rita's house and always come out with popsicles. We did this parody to the... I'm talking about the Marky Fo radio show one day. It was it wasn't in the 90s, but it was about the 90s. But we did a parody. We did parodies on the show, but we did one of Garth Brooks' 2 Pina Coladas. I want 2 popsicles from Rita's. But we always called him Homeless Jim, or Homely Jim for short, or Homeless Bum. But he was always going around. And of course, we were like making fun of him, but we were thinking, like, well, I wish we had the food. But I'll be talking about more of that time period later on. Just, it's not Clint's birthday now because I'm filming this in January, but happy birthday, happy month you were born, Clint. I'm so proud of who you've become now. Like, on a serious note, he lives like not very far from the Marky Fo house. Like, I was there. I'm amazed at the neighborhood. Like, so much has changed, yet so much is the same. But yeah, he's got 2 great kids. I'm just really proud of him. My baby brother, and we were of course far apart in age, and I moved away and stuff, so we weren't as close as I'd like, as we wish we could have been. Probably not as close as he was with Travis and Josh. Travis especially. But yeah, just I love all my brothers and sisters. I really do. I wish we were closer, and it's not. If I don't keep in contact as much as I want to, it's not because I don't want to. It's just life gets going, and you just... Same with my mom. I don't call her nearly as much as I need to. And it's not because I'm not thinking about her. It's just so much going on with life, and I don't know. But happy birthday, Clinton, even though it's January. Some wrestling stuff we'll be talking about now. The only pay-per-view this month was WWF King of the Ring 1994. This is the one infamous for the horrible Art Donovan commentary. He kept asking, how much does this guy weigh? Like, that's the most important thing, is finding out how much somebody weighs. But that's infamous for that, and he was making Macho Man so mad, you could tell. But of course, King of the Ring is a tournament that usually starts before the actual pay-per-view. They'd have qualifying matches and other matches to get into the tournament. But the tournament tonight, King of the Ring started with the quarterfinals. And just some quick results. Razor Ramon defeated Bam Bam Bigelow. IRS defeated Mabel. Owen Hart defeated Tatanka. And the 1-2-3 Kid defeated Jeff Jarrett. And then the semifinals, Razor Ramon beat IRS and Owen Hart beat 1-2-3 Kid. And of course, Owen Hart went on to win King of the Ring. His brother had done it previously, twice. But Owen Hart went on to beat Razor Ramon and become King of the Ring. And of course, he'd be gloating about that forever with the Slammy Awards. But the main event was actually not the King of the Ring final. It was Roddy Piper in a grudge match defeated Jerry the King Lawler. They'd been feuding for months. Some other important things. WCW didn't have a pay-per-view, but they had one of their big TV specials, Clash of the Champions 27. And on this show, Lord Steven Regal would capture the WCW World TV title from Larry Zbyszko, the living legend, as he always did. And the main event, Ric Flair was the WCW World Champion, and Sting was the WCW International World Champion, which is the big gold belt. I told this story before. It was the NWA World title, but when they split, they kept that, but didn't call it the NWA World title. They called it the WCW International World title, which makes no sense. That'd be like saying the United States North American title. Like, it can't be both. How's it international and world title? Don't they kind of both mean the same anyway? Anyway, Ric Flair defeated him to unify the titles, to finally get rid of that. And they kept the belt Sting had, known as the big gold belt. And that would be the WCW World title till the end. And then They also during this time, Hulk Hogan made his WCW debut on WCW Saturday Night, June 10th, which of course we all know Hogan. You've seen him get booed. But one other thing I note, future WWE Women's Champion Liv Morgan was born this month, on June 8th actually. It was actually my dad's birthday, June 8th. Can't believe he would be 75 freaking years old this year. And I'm 41, and he was 45 at this time, I think. No, yeah, he was 45 at this time. So right now I'm close to the age my dad was at this time, and wow, he wouldn't be 70, would he? Yeah, he's gonna be 75 this year, or would be, I should say. Still be, I don't, whatever you want to call it. Man, time just flying by here. Probably not on this podcast. I'm probably boring you guys. We're getting ready to wrap up. Talk a little bit about some movies. Some really big movies came out this month. Speed. Absolutely love this movie. Keanu Reeves and Sandra Bullock. The basic premises. They're on, Sandra Bullock's on this bus, and Dennis Hopper plays the crazy freaking villain. Put a bomb on the bus once it reaches a certain speed, and if it, the bomb's activated, and if it goes below the speed, it's going to blow up. And Keanu Reeves is a cop, and he's kind of like one of those, Wild West type cops where they go on there and, do crazy stuff, sometimes against their boss's orders. He ends up getting onto the bus, and they end up, I won't give away how it is, but if you haven't seen Speed, watch it. Speed 2 is, I don't really like it. It takes place on a boat. It's like they're trying too hard on that one. But yeah, Speed. One of those iconic 90s movies. Speaking of that, the highest grossing Disney animated film of the 90s, and I don't know if all time, but of the 90s, was The Lion King. And that was massive. I don't care for the remakes. It's annoying. I wish, and the one now they're going back to sort of the prequel of The Lion King, like Mufasa's story, as a live action / computer, whatever they got on there. I wish they would have done that cartoon form. I don't really care. It was unnecessary, and the songs they redid were horrible crap, horrible Beyonce crap. They ruined the songs. They didn't need the movie. Anyway, stop talking about the negative stuff. The Lion King cartoon, just so much like there. This is when Disney was like at its like peak popularity, I'd have to say, in the mid 90s. Just the 90s output, and the late 80s stuff they had, some of the greatest cartoons ever. But love The Lion King, love the second one. Of course, just all the side characters. Timon and Pumbaa became famous. They ended up getting their own cartoon and their own movie. But yeah, The Lion King, if you haven't seen that one, like the original cartoon, then like if you have access to Disney Plus or can find the DVD or something, go watch it now if you haven't ever seen it for some reason. Now, one other movie is Little Big League. One of the things you got in the 90s a lot of were kids' baseball movies. I love these things. Rookie of the Year, where the kid falls and breaks his arm and his can suddenly throw like 100 and something miles an hour fastball and joins the Cubs. Angels in the Outfield, of course, where actual angels come and help the California Angels win. But Little Big League was a different one. It was about this kid, his grandpa owns the Twins, and he dies, and he ended up making his grandson the owner of the Twins. So he owns the Minnesota Twins now, and it reminds me a lot of Rookie of the Year. But of course, he's not a player. And then he becomes manager too, and it's a very funny kids comedy baseball movie. That was a sub-genre then, kids comedy baseball movies. But wind up here with the news. The FX channel debuted on cable TV. That was the start of the time when you started getting like 70, 80 plus cable channels, and then they would come out with the digital cable, which would 200-300 multiple pay-per-view channels, really revolutionize cable the way it is now. But that's when they were starting to add a lot more channels then. There's a series of earthquakes that hit Colombia, Bolivia, and Mexico within a few days of each other, so definitely some hard times. But Speaking of hard times, and I'm not talking about dusty roads, June 12th, Nicole Brown Simpson and Ronald Goldman were murdered. And OJ did it. I don't give a crap what anybody says. But a lot of people would go, oh, did he do it? A lot of people just forget about the victims. It was absolutely horrible. Of course, 5 days later, that's the world's slowest speed chase of OJ and the Bronco. And then he was arraigned 3 days later. But that was the start of the whole OJ Simpson thing. And I've seen, tons of documentaries, read tons of books from all viewpoints, not just the ones that say he did it. And I am seeing court records. I am absolutely convinced he did it. And, it's too bad he died a free man. That's all I got to say. But, like I said, not a lot of people talk about the victims. You can say what you want about, oh, she was doing this. Nicole Brown, I don't even want to put Simpson on her name, was an absolute victim of domestic violence. And maybe the stuff with OJ was my start of, and not to mention what I had to witness, personally. No wonder I am so against wrestlers, that not just the ones that do SA, which I've seen in a video before. I'm not saying the full word to get banned on here, but the ones that are, I don't want to say just abusive, because it's not just, but the ones that only have allegations of abuse or stuff, they still should not be allowed in wrestling. And I just found out something about Roger Malcolm, which I'm not going to mention. I've talked to people. I've realized what's going on, and some people are put in different circumstances they don't want to be in. But just keep these people out of wrestling. And like I said, Nicole Brown was the ultimate victim of spousal abuse, woman beating, whatever you want to call it. And I hate to end this podcast on such a negative note, but I am so not tired of making videos about it, but I'm tired of things not getting shared when it's so important to get these messages out. But I said, sorry to end on a sour note there. Talked about a lot of good stuff in here. I hope this one's, I know, has gone over an hour. If I get up in this less than an hour, I'm going to be super surprised. But next episode, we're actually going back to 1993. We're going to May 1993. It's our third trip into 93, and I was 9 years old then, in third grade. And we moved to Norwood, and I'll get some old memories going throughout the week of what I want to talk about. And I hope you guys are enjoying the podcast. Look for that bonus episode, the trivia challenge. I don't know when I'll be recording the next video games ones, but I'm sure I'll record something, and I'll probably be ranting about something at some point. You know all my stuff. But thank you for joining us here on Facebook, YouTube, Spotify. If you want to see me on some other platform, it makes it easier for you to access this content, let me know. I'm starting my OnlyFans, don't kid. Only podcasts. I'm wearing nothing but a podcast. Don't ask me. I'm slap happy. I'm half asleep like always. We'll see you next time.
Tales from the 90's never die. In our hearts they testify. VCRs and mixtape spins, where every tale begins. Tales from the crypt, marathon.